Welcome to Raider Takes on Sports. In today's episode, we recap the NCAA National Championship, talk NBA playoffs, and the MVP race, and soccer, among other things. And now, here are your hosts, Cody Maggard and Kevin Booth.
Hello and welcome to the very first Raider Takes on Sports TV show. I'm Cody Maggard.
I'm Kevin Booth.
Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this show. It's going to be a lot of sports talk. Sometimes it's going to get heated. Kevin and I may yell at each other, but that's okay as long as you enjoy it. Be sure to follow us on Twitter back here where you can see this show. We'll also have it up on YouTube. It is April, and with that being said, the NCAA tournament just ended a couple weeks ago. So, Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on why North Carolina won the tournament.
Well, I have to say, first of all, North Carolina was obviously the best team. Starting out, they had all of the hype, I think. More than any one seed that had it. They could have been the number one overall seed in the minds of many. And so I think just all around, matchup-wise, Justin Jackson is by far going to be one of the best NBA players to go through this draft, or at least come from this draft class. I think he's got every skill set that an NBA team or an NBA player needs to have. I think that their stars showed, and I think that they just played to their strengths, and against Kentucky they just made a shot, and then from there on I think that they had the full momentum and the will to win.
I agree. North Carolina was the best team in the country all year. I don't think there's any doubt about that, even though Duke came in preseason number one, and all the hype was around Duke. But it just goes to show that in the tournament especially, your upperclassmen leadership always plays a part. Even these championship teams that have great freshmen, they always have senior or upperclassmen leadership.
Yeah.
And that was no different with North Carolina. They had already been there, been to the championship last year, lost on that last second shot to Villanova. But yeah, I agree. They well-deserved number one seed. Played great when they had to throughout the tournament. Now, that's not saying every team or every game they played was just, out of this world.
Right.
But they played great when it mattered. Like, take that Kentucky game, for example. Down the stretch, North Carolina went on a 12-0 run in the last 4 minutes and just shut it down like they had to do.
So, Cody, speaking of playoff basketball, the NBA playoff picture is starting to set in. Teams are moving up and down in their positions. A few wins and losses are separating a few teams. What are your thoughts on that so far as we look at the East and the West?
Well, I think as you look at it, at the time of doing this show, tonight's the last night of the regular season. And I think when you look at it, the big surprise has to be the Celtics.
Absolutely.
The Celtics in the East, and how good the Rockets have been in the West, not just on offense, but on defense. Mark D'Antoni, not a defensive coach by trade, but they've improved vastly. But I think that when you look at it with the Celtics especially, I don't know if many people thought they would be where they are now. They are one win away. They play the Bucks tonight, and they have a good chance of winning because the Bucks are resting a lot of their main players, mainly Giannis.
Yeah.
And they can win, and they have the one seed. And I think the Celtics are a legitimate threat to go through the East. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think the Celtics are a legitimate threat to get to the finals.
I think just speaking playoffs in general, or at least playoff picture in general, the West, not much of a surprise going on. You got the Warriors at 1.
Warriors, Spurs.
That's where we've seen them all season. Nothing's really jumped. Is it a bigger surprise what the Celtics are doing winning, or is it a bigger surprise what the Cavs are doing losing? The Cavs have been, I don't want to say
12
atrocious,
and 15 since the All-Star break. 12 and 15.
They're a losing record after coming off of an amazing playoff run last year. And you're about to drop, you say that like they're falling out of the playoffs, but you're about to drop from the 1 to the 2 in a conference that's not great. It's improving by all means.
Yeah.
But it's not great.
Right. And I think since the Cavs, let's just say they will be let's just assume they're going to be the 2 seed. I think that them dropping from the 1 to the 2 means they won't have home court advantage. I think that might actually be their downfall in the East. But you can never bet against LeBron when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
LeBron
he turns his phone off. No more social media. He goes black hole with all that. And it's just LeBron.
But if you look at it from the best team, all-around team in the East, the Celtics are that team. We have to move on, though, and talk about the Warriors. Warriors, best team in the West. Have Kevin Durant back now from injury. Anyone going to stop them from getting to the finals?
I think they win the whole thing. I mean, no one's going to beat them in a 7-game series. You've got that ridiculous roster with, what is it, 5 All-Stars? I mean, you can put a starting 5 of All-Stars out there. I mean, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? I mean, you got the Spurs who play well. I mean, they're always underrated because they're the Spurs. I mean, they're just a boring team. And so you have Kawhi Leonard, who's playing his greatest basketball. You have LaMarcus Aldridge on that team. But there's no one that can – if Steph Curry wants to go for 40 –
who's going to stop him?
Who's going to stop one of those players from going for 40
That's the thing
in
with
a 7-game series?
That's the thing. Okay, so you shut down Steph. You shut down Clay even. Kevin Durant. He's still going to get his 35,
Absolutely.
38. But then, you can't shut all 3 of them down. No team in the league can do that. And that might speak to, if you don't like that, then that's a whole separate issue.
Sure.
But there's no team that can consistently stop all 3 of those players and the role players for 7 games.
I completely agree. So let's talk a minute about Kevin Durant's best friend, Russell Westbrook. We'll talk a little bit about James Harden as well in this discussion, but it looks like Russell Westbrook is going to be the MVP. I mean, he's averaging a triple-double for the first time since Oscar Robertson. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, the first player in the NBA to average a triple-double throughout the year since the Big O, Oscar Robertson. I think this might be one of the greatest seasons by any player in NBA history.
Do you think it's the greatest season? Are you confident enough in saying that this is the greatest season from a player?
Yeah, I am. Because look at that Thunder team. Look at that roster. They have Russell Westbrook. They have Victor Oladipo, Steven Adams, Enes Kanter. Who else?
You can say that.
And they are still in the playoffs.
His supporting cast is not great. Sure, they're in the playoffs. Let's drop back to 2007. Look at LeBron James. Look at that supporting cast.
LeBron wasn't doing this consistently.
He ended up in the finals.
But he wasn't going out and getting you 50, 15, and 14 every night out.
Have you seen the percentage of Russell Westbrook having the ball in his hands? The man takes at least 25 shots a game.
He has to.
If you're going to take 25 shots a game, and especially with his athleticism, you're going to. And I'm not trying to discredit what he's doing because he's an amazing athlete and he's doing things that we have not seen before, and that's just pure. That's what it is. But you see some of he's first in uncontested rebounds in the NBA. In contested rebounds, and I don't know who takes this stat, by the way. I don't know who's got time to take this stat, but it's a stat. In contested rebounds, he's 64th. I think what he does is crazy because he does have the ball in his hands 95% of the time. And I watched him one night, and he comes down the floor, and he does this multiple times. He's done this throughout his entire career. He'll come down, and it's a 1-on-4 situation. He's got 2 guys open on the perimeter, and I know that, you may not trust him or whatever, but you're going 1-on-4. He takes it in, doesn't get any kind of foul call, and throws up a ridiculous shot. The guy averages 5 turnovers a game as a point guard.
Well, let me just stop you there. I would give Russell Westbrook the ball 1-on-4 every time I could because, he's Russell Westbrook, and he's going to get you 50 points a game.
By shooting 25 times or 30 times.
He has to.
35 times.
Who's going to shoot the ball more than 12 times on that team? Victor Oladipo? Probably not.
Okay, so the reason that I think that you have this MVP discussion, though, between him and James Harden, is James Harden's winning. Russell Westbrook can't win. I mean, he's in the playoffs, but he's not.
The MVP goes to most valuable player to a team.
Take LeBron off the Cavs. Where are they at?
Well, they're falling out of second place, I can tell you that.
They're falling down to last in the East.
But you take Russell Westbrook off the Thunder, and where would they would be in the lottery in contention for the number 1 pick. They would be dreadful.
Sure, they wouldn't be. They would not be as good. Are they? With the most valuable player, though, you're talking about someone who is the most valuable to that team. And I know you can't give it to LeBron every year, obviously, because that he is the greatest player in basketball to me right now. That's just what it is. But you're doing this all based on his statistics, and that's how everyone has hyped up Russell Westbrook and his MVP. Is you're basing it on his statistics. There's no way to measure the intangibles of the game. He doesn't run this team. He blames they blame his team all the time. I mean, he's throwing his team under the bus constantly.
So you think it is a legitimate discussion that James Harden should be MVP over Russell Westbrook?
Absolutely.
I think just because of how the Rockets being third in the West.
Because like you said, take James Harden off of that team. Take Russell Westbrook off that team. Head to head, Houston versus Oklahoma City.
Houston's going to win that game.
But by what? Are they going to dominate that game?
Probably.
I don't think so.
Because the Thunder don't have Russell Westbrook. And you know what? We're just going to leave it there because we're being told to move on. We're going to move on now to something a little less intense. Nobody's averaging triple-doubles in golf. But if they were, Sergio Garcia would have another green jacket. Sergio Garcia won his first major championship in 73 attempts. Kevin, I don't know if you caught a lot of the Masters, but I usually try to because I'm a big golf fan. Were you more impressed with Sergio Garcia or with the field?
I was more impressed with Sergio. I mean, the guy has been known for essentially blowing it. I mean, essentially, he's just known for losing. Yeah. And of all the times that he's had,
he was always the he's good, but he's
not won a Master. He's never,
right.
Or well, not necessarily a Master. He's never won a major.
Right.
I mean, he's good, but he's never going to win anything.
Right.
And so to break through that, especially after he misses that putt, that easily could have
won it in regulation.
Yeah, that easily could have made him lose.
Yeah.
For him, I think it's bigger for him. I think it's bigger for the game anyway, for him to win.
Moving on now to a bit of a bigger ball than a golf ball, soccer ball. They're going to move on to soccer. And Kevin, Champions League was today, the quarterfinals, first leg. But before we get to that, the scene in Dortmund yesterday in Germany, the Borussia Dortmund team bus, an object exploded next to the bus, which actually injured starting center back Mark Bartra. He had to have wrist surgery this morning, and the game was postponed until today. Should UEFA have made Dortmund play that game today? Because a lot of people thought that they shouldn't, including Thomas Tuchel, the manager of Borussia Dortmund.
Of course, they're gonna think that. I mean, they're not gonna want to play with a player out. I mean, especially with a starting player out, they're not gonna want to play that game. But I mean, what do you do? I mean, do you postpone it until he's healthy again? And you never know when he comes back.
It's not even the fact that that's not even the issue. Is that the health? It's just the scene in general. But the thing is, with Champions League, is the ties are planned out to go weeks during the league season.
Yeah.
So you have to go around the league schedule anyway. And I'm just not sure there would have been another window they could fit this in with.
Well, that, and I mean, you give it a chance to, as horrible as that scene is, you give it a chance to kind of move on. You know, those players get a chance to be on the field playing the game they love. Right. They get a chance to kind of forget it, because you know that stays in their mind after, especially seeing a player injured like that. So
right. But as for the game itself, it was played today. Had an 11:45 Central Time kickoff, and Dortmund actually lost 3-2 to Monaco. It was a great game, but now they go back to Monaco. Monaco have the three away goals, so Dortmund have a lot of work to do to get back into that second tie. But the other Champions League game we saw today was Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. It was a great game, 2-1 to Real Madrid. Bayern went down a man. Ronaldo had the second goal.
Yeah.
So going to Madrid, Bayern will have a lot of work to do. They won't have Javi Martinez, who was suspended after that red card. And then the second game from yesterday, Juventus and Barcelona, 3-0 to Juventus. How surprised are you?
Wow. I mean, obviously I'm not one to keep up with a lot of soccer and things like that, but I know the name Barcelona, and I know that they're a great team. And to think that they lost to someone 3-0, I mean, that's especially
they did this last time against PSG, and they had that just monumental comeback, that 6-1 win against PSG to move on to the next leg.
I did watch that.
And don't forget today, Leicester City
Jamie Vardy.
Leicester City
I know that,
played
man.
at Atletico. They lost 1-0, unfortunately, and if you saw the game, they were just bunkered down, trying to defend for their lives the whole time, and just lobbing long balls over the top that Vardy could run down. And they gave up a penalty in the first half to Griezmann, Antoine Griezmann, who finished it off 1-0. But they're still alive, going back to Leicester. If they can get a goal, kind of bunkered down a little bit, maybe take it to PKs, or just maybe they'll be on the front foot since they're at home.
Will they ever be relevant again? Do you think, or do they just have the one run?
That's tough to say because they've already fired their manager. Claudio Ranieri's been out. And some reports suggest that the players had a lot to do with that, which could have been true. It looked like they'd stopped playing under him, which you just hate to see that because of how special that run was.
Yeah.
But under new manager Craig Shakespeare, they've won 4 out of their last 5 in the Premier League, and they've had this great run through Champions League. And if they can get past the quarterfinals to the semifinals of the Champions League, Leicester City, in the Champions League semifinals, you never know what could happen. They win the Champions League, they're in it again next year. By no means am I saying Leicester City are going to win the Champions League.
Who do you have winning the Champions League?
Real Madrid.
Yeah.
The winner of this Real Madrid-Bayern Munich tie will win the Champions League, no matter the draw. They will win the Champions League. So moving on now, that is our last sports topic. But moving on to something kind of relevant to the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
A lot of people on social media and really throughout the world have seen the United Airlines thing, where they were shown on video dragging a passenger off the plane.
Yeah.
And the passenger just happened to be from Kentucky, from Elizabethtown.
Elizabethtown, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? The initial reports suggest that he was offered $800 to have his flight rebooked.
Well, everything there was. Yeah. All of the passengers.
Yeah, they had overbooked the flight, and they had offered those who they had to pull off $800, for their new flight.
Sure.
I would probably take that.
Well, would you take the $800 or here's a few things that I have, and we're just doing this essentially. We want to try other things than just sports. I mean, that's mainly what we're here for.
It's a human interest relevant to Kentucky.
It's relevant to Kentucky, and it's relevant nationally.
Yeah.
But what I think United has had trouble consistently. I mean, they're consistently having PR trouble.
Right.
Need some help? Call me. Anyway, I need a job. So you take that. And why not just bump the price up? Someone will give it's not like they don't have money. They can bump that up to $1,000. They can bump that up to $1,500 at some point. Which the reports say that as they were on the plane, they were saying they said $800 and no one took it, and people were saying raise the price.
Right. Raise the price.
It's not like you don't have the money. It's not like you don't have the money. Raise the price a little bit. You'll get to. But I mean, to see him dragged off of that plane. That's. And how do you not realize that all of those people have their phones?
I know.
And
there are questions about the man's background and stuff, but I don't know how relevant that really is when he's being dragged off of the airplane.
It doesn't matter your background, I think, at all, unless you were especially because it wasn't like he was being, from the reports and things, it's not like he was being irate. It's not like he was going nuts and like being violent or anything.
He wasn't losing his mind on the plane. He was being dragged off forcibly. His glasses were falling off his face, and he just looked pitiful, if we're honest.
I don't know how you come back from this. I mean, you obviously have to essentially go with business as usual.
Right.
You have to essentially act like it didn't happen. You can acknowledge it and say, we made a mistake.
Apologize and try to move on.
Exactly.
That's probably going to go to court unless they settle it out of court, which would be in the best interest for United. I would have probably taken the $800 at first, but this man...
He's going to get millions now.
He's going to get more than $800.
And he's a doctor, so, I mean, what's $800 to him, honestly?
Yeah, you're right. Are you going to fly United anymore? I don't know if you've flown United in the past. I've not. I've only flown Southwest.
Yeah. I've flown Southwest and Delta.
Does this make a difference to you, flying United?
A little bit, because you see... and you hear how those passengers were treated, and you think, well, I mean, take this for instance. Did you know Isaiah Briscoe was supposed to be on that plane?
Really? Did not know that. Former Kentucky guard, he just declared for the draft.
Isaiah Briscoe was supposed to be on that plane, and you think, I mean, that's a little closer to home, kind of, and you think, that could have been me. I mean, let me ask you this. Cody Maggard's on the plane of United, and they say, we're offering you $800 to get off. And then let's just, for sake of argument, you said no.
Okay.
They walk up to you and they say, you need to get off the plane. And just not for any reason, they just come up to you because they just randomly decided it was you. Do you get off?
Well, I would have a lot of questions, but I think in the end, I'm like, no, I paid for this flight. I'm already in this seat. Why do you need me off of this plane?
And it's not even necessarily that you're saying it's the principle of it. I could have paid $2 for that seat, but it's I'm here. I'm on the plane. Right. You're not going to forcibly move me, right. or I'm not going to get up just because you decided to rank. You're not giving me any kind of reason. You're not giving me any kind of benefit to getting off this plane. Especially, that's a doctor that he said he had to get home because he had patients.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, I don't get up.
I don't either. And this probably won't make a difference if I'm looking at flight options in United or
probably not.
I'm probably going to go United.
Well, if it's cheaper. Then.
Yeah, if it's cheaper, then I'm going to go United. But thank you for your input on that. But so that's all we have for this show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is right behind me, RaiderV_online. And this show will also be up on Facebook and our Raider View YouTube page. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to disagree with us, argue with us, that's fine too. Leave it in the comments section. Tweet at us. We're both on Twitter. You can see us on the Raider View page. So just thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks.